It's like I love my children. They're members of the family. You want to provide for them as well. And by the way, as far as appointing people, including powers of attorney, executors of wills, and guardians of property and people, one very important aspect that a lot of people ignore is, if you want to appoint me your power of attorney, you need to ask me first, because I might say, well, I'm honored, but I don't want to do it.
Absolutely.
You want to name me the executor of your will? I'm honored that you thought of me, but I don't want to do it.
Absolutely.
You want to name me the guardian of your property or take your pet? I'm honored, but I may not want to do it. So you have to have the consent of those people in order for those documents to actually function.
Another thing you might want to consider as a backup, you know, by the time you die, your executor may have gone and preceded you.
I always
you
suggest
need somebody.
you have an alternate,
Yeah,
correct.
right.
And I have one more question.
Fire away.
Let's say I in my will it says I want my daughter to get my Waterford crystal.
Right?
But in the meantime, somebody has come who has always admired it, and I've said, well, you know, I'm not going to live much longer. Why don't you take it? So now it's been given to somebody else, but in the will it says it's supposed to go to my daughter. What happens?
It's no longer there, therefore the will isn't going to compel, or she won't get it by terms of the will. What you might have done, however, is opened a door that allows your daughter to come forward and say, this person used undue influence, this person stole it, this person by some nefarious means obtained the Waterford crystal vase that my mother clearly wanted to give to me, therefore I want him or
So what
her
you do is you
investigated.
create a big rumpus about it.
Yeah,
you
you
know,
might do that. You
fuss
might
it.
want to say to your daughter in advance, I know the will says that I'm going to give you my Waterford crystal vase. I'm not going to do that, however. I've decided to give it to somebody else.
Okay,
Right.
thank you, caller. Does
Thank
that
you.
satisfy you?
Thank you very much.
Okay,
welcome.
thank you very much. Send me a stamped envelope. I got some wonderful gifts for you.
Okay.
Good morning, caller. We got another caller waiting online here.
Good morning.
Yeah, and they didn't wait long.
They didn't, sometimes
Okay,
you
Reed.
may have to
Hello,
wind me
hello.
down. Oh, I'm sorry.
I have a question just pertaining to the will as well. How young should you get a will? I mean, I'm 18. Should I get a will now, or should I wait?
Got any money?
No.
Well, it depends on what you do have. Now, there's no age limit. I can tell you, however, you need to be of full mental competence in order to do a will, and a good attorney will not allow you to do a will when there's any questions regarding your mental competence. That's the same thing with any document. A healthcare proxy, power of attorney, you need to have the mental wherewithal to do that. Obviously, an 18-year-old person is going to have that, as do many 80, 90, and 100-year-olds. The point is, it doesn't matter as far as your age is concerned. You're old enough. Now, there's a point. An 11-year-old might have some difficulty proving that they had the testamentary capacity to do a will, particularly if that person dies. But where in your case you might want a will, one of the things I mentioned, you may have a pet dog, a pet cat, a pet goldfish, it doesn't matter what it is, you may want to provide for the care of that animal or animals at the time of your death. If you've got other things that are, and you may not have a ton of cash in the bank, I guess is what you tried to say, but you may have some other things that would be particularly cherished by some of your friends, relatives, your parents, you may have children, you may not, but somebody that might have said, you know, I've really always liked that. If something ever happened, I'd really like to have that to remember you by. Now, one of the things that I've noticed, there's kits available. You've got to be real careful with the kits. The kits, in fact, can create a valid will. I don't think that once you get the kit, they're not very explanatory. It's a long explanation, but they don't really give good explanations. By the time you buy the kit and hire a lawyer, you've probably cost more than if you'd have just hired the lawyer in the first place. But nonetheless, you can do it that way relatively cheaply. If all you want to do is provide for the care of a pet, you can probably do it that way. If you want to do a particular item of jewelry, personal property, a knick-knack, some kind of keepsake, you can do that through a kit as well.
So
but you might want to do it through a lawyer who
Dan-
can tell you what to look for in the future as well.
The answer in short is yes.
Yeah, I'm sorry, yeah. I do kind of tend to ramble, as you know.
Okay, caller, you
Then
happy?
I have another question. Too.
All right, shoot away.
How, if I created a will, say today at 18, when do you think I should mend my will, and how often do you think I should mend it?
You need to amend it every time circumstances change. Now, I'm not talking about now you have a job and a little bit more money, because you'll probably have provided for that in your initial will. And what you're going to do is provide that something is going to happen with the residue of your estate, which is everything that's left over, not specifically given. When you marry, if you marry, and there's no law that says you have to, but if you marry, for example, the law changes the way that your property at your death goes. You can't cut a spouse out by will. You can by contract, by the way. Most people refer to them as separation agreements, meaning you and your husband or your wife don't get along anymore.
Or
But you-
prenuptial.
That's right. Prenuptial could too, but it's got to be by contract.
Yeah.
You just can't do it and then ignore it. You can't in your will say, I leave nothing to my spouse because he is a no-good so-and-so or she's a no-good so-and-so.
She's got more money than I do.
Yeah, it doesn't matter. Can't
Now-
cut a spouse
now-
out by will.
Yeah.
They
Now,
can
are you
elect
saying-
against your will, and in surrogate's court will be successful 100% of the time. I'm sorry, you were having some other question?
Now, are you saying that means if you and your wife own it, then you can't do that, or if you
No,
own
no, no. If now you're 18, I'm presuming that you're unmarried.
Right.
Once
I'm
you
just
be-
I'm just thinking about other people. If your wife and you own the house, then you can't cut her out. But if you just
No,
own
you
the
can't
house,
cut a
then you
spouse
can't.
out for anything. You can't cut a spouse out by will at all. Doesn't matter if you own any property or not. Whatever is yours, your wife or in your case, your husband would be entitled to a portion of it, even though your will says not. Now, if you have children, you may want to provide for them. That's another event which changes the way you want to do your will. If you come into significant sums of money, you might want to think about trusts, or you might want to think about protecting your assets in a different way, even through will. There's a lot of life's circumstances that might change that would require, no, not legally require you, but practically require you to update your will. So if there's a significant life-changing event, you probably want to review your will to see that it still does what you want it to. But keep in mind, after marriage, you can't cut a spouse out. So you may want to do a will at that point, no matter what.
There you go.
Okay, thank you very much.
Well,
You're
thank you. Somebody else is trying to get in, I can see now. We're getting a lot of calls backing up. Okay, now, I did want to mention the fact, incidentally, seniors, if you have scripts as one of your health insurance, part of it, they provide you prescriptions, many of you. They had all their records stolen, and now anybody who had scripts, they know your health history, they know your social security number, they know everything, and they have threatened, the thief has already threatened, unless they're paid a lot of money, they're going to give all this information out to people. And so you're in deep trouble here, and I would suggest that you contact Scripps, which is hard to get to. I finally did get in. They're not going to do you any good yet. But check your, the one thing you can do, and it's smart to do, and if you suspect you have been stolen, as Jim had said, this identifies, the thing goes on all the time. The one thing you can do is go into one of the three major credit corporations, and you can ask them to put a hold on your information. So what you're going to do is tell them you think there's a possible fraud going on. And that makes it much harder for anybody to transfer your information, get a credit in your name, or anything else. And you can go in every 4 months. There are three majors. You go in every 4 months. You can find out who's been checking your credit, and that's very important.
And the thievery, by the way, is far more prevalent than what you might think. It happens all the time, and occasionally it gets reported when you have millions of people's identities stolen from credit card companies, but it happens all the time. And you may notice, for example, when you get your credit card things, they send you different private policy statements. They tell you that they can sell your information to other agencies, which is why you're getting solicitations from all these people that you never heard of before, credit card companies that you didn't even know existed. I wouldn't say, I'm not trying to cause panic here and say that the solicitation you get from a credit card company you haven't heard of isn't legitimate. I would expect that credit card company is actually legitimate. They're an actual bank. I don't know how powerful they are, but they're an actual bank, and that information was lawfully obtained. However, I guess what I'm saying is that information is sold to a number of agencies and a number of people and a number of organizations, and your information that you believe is private, that you gave to Chase or to Citibank or somebody like that, remains safe and secure with them, has been transferred God knows how many different times to different people.
In different countries.
That's right, I know.
In Fuji, where they
Yeah.
can't follow them. Incidentally, I did want to mention the fact, you've got to really be on your toes with this, because this company, Scripps, which handles the prescriptions for many, many New Yorkers, millions of people, they had the